Hello and welcome back. So we are going to move on to finishing up our piece, and here is the mark scheme. This will be available on Blackboard for you to have a browse through. If not, you can kind of look at it a bit from here, and we're going to go through how to bump up your mark using the this kind of sheet to your advantage. So let's have a look from right to left because it makes more sense that way. Because the first thing over here that you're marked on is presentation, and that's the good thing about these softwares. This isn't a composition software. We shouldn't really be composing on MuseScore or Sibelius. It's a notation software. It's for making pretty looking scores. So when we are composing, we should really compose at the piano or our instrument or kind of off the top of our head, and then write it down in Sibelius, because there's the kind of temptation to type things down and just repeat things, whereas at the piano and on your instrument you're going to be a lot more creative. But we are going to work through how to get high marks, so let's just scroll that ever so slightly so we know what kind of bracket we're at. So we're not going to be anywhere down here, so let's just move up to about level 40. Fair attempt at clear presentation, but does not always follow the appropriate style guide and may contain errors. So avoid mistakes is essentially the breakdown from that one. Same for level 50. Let's move on to level 60. So clear presentation using the appropriate style guide. And then if we just keep going, fluently presented following the appropriate style guide, fluently and creatively presented, and then impeccably presented following the appropriate style guide, but with evidence of strong and persuasive personal style. So how can we achieve this in our piece, presentation? This goes back to a choice I made in the very first video. I said that when we created our new score, in fact I'll make one very quickly, that we should make it one from the jazz lineups rather than choosing our own instruments. If we chose our own instruments, and for example when we just go soprano, I'll just recreate it quickly. What am I looking for? I'm looking for keyboards, so piano, and of course the plucked strings, which will be the double bass. Just to show you, I'll go for bass guitar, why not? Next. If I did it like that, then you can see here, this is all classical notation. So by going from the format, it's automatically added in jazz format. So this is a slightly different style of score, where you've got this certain font, it's a jazz font, and the treble clefs are drawn differently. Here's they're very simple and classical, whereas they look a bit more doodled like they would be back in the day. And this is how a jazz standard kind of would look. It would have these sort of symbols, and you can really see it. I noticed it most on the on these pauses, which are very different to their equivalent in the classical domain. So that was a big part of the presentation, was giving it that kind of that style. And also, let's think about presentation. What have I been doing throughout? I've been making sure that we have 4 bars per page. That is just a bit of laying out that makes it a lot easier to read. I've also been adding in the rehearsal marks. I know this section is the head. Make it clear to the examiner where each section is. This is the head, this is solo 1, this is solo 2. And that is just a kind of a bit of presentation that will make it a lot easier for the examiner to read and someone playing this piece to read. But the good thing about this notation software, if you're doing this by hand, you'd have to remember that you can put in the acronyms here and you need to put it in right. Whereas on the if you do it on Sibelius or a MuseScore, it does it for you. It does the acronyms when necessary. It lays it out pretty much perfectly. So getting the presentation marks is very easy. And there's some extra things we could put in for presentation. For example, let's change the title, because at the moment it's called Blues. What a boring title. Come up with a name. Come up with anything, really. Let's just delete that. Let's go. Let's add some text. Let's add in a title. Sunset Blues. What a boring title, but it's the title and it sounds like the sort of thing you would expect. Call it after a street name, call it after someone you know blues. Just come up with a name for it and give it a name. Presentation. Let's, instead of Elliot, let's have my full name. Let's have Elliot Robinson. That's great. That's just a tiny bit of writing that makes it a lot clearer and better presented. So let's have a go at moving on to these other things that we have in our mark scheme. Instrumentation or orchestration. So this is all about kind of the choices of instruments and how they're used. So if we go down to the bottom, you know, it's inappropriate instruments and lots of errors. So that would be, you know, a terrible choice of instruments. That would be a I don't know, an organ in like a classical church organ with with maracas and just an absolute mess, you know. Jazz can be played on a lot of instruments, but there are ones that are better choices than others. So I think if you stick to traditional jazz instruments, you know, your flutes and flutes and violins can also come in there as well, but stick to what you would associate with jazz music, and you're not going to go too wrong on the choices of instruments. And this is where you want to get a passing mark. You want generally sound and appropriate, and some sensitivity to overall effect. So you've made the right choices of instruments, well done, and you're kind of thinking about what instrument you're playing. You know, pianos play chords, saxophones don't. Oh, whoops. But to get the high marks, there is the entry of the word I mentioned in the last video a lot, idiomatic. So if you want to get anything above 50, you have to start writing idiomatically, which means, for a start, write within the range of the instrument. Don't go outside the range. That's a terrible idea. I think I'm just going to switch back to comps there. So yeah, keep within the range of the instrument and keep it all playable. Also, think about how they are used. So idiomatic and careful. So don't go lots of scalic quaver or semi-quaver runs on the trombone, because your trombone player is not going to enjoy that, and it's hard because it's hard. Whereas a flute player, if you're giving them loads of repeated notes, that's not going to sound good. And kind of think about what your instrument's good at and play to your strengths, or play to their strengths rather. So saxophones, lots of scales, trombones, more rhythmic interest. Yeah, let's have a look. So let's go kind of a bit higher up. Idiomatic and imaginative. Sensitive to the available forces and overall effect. So that is thinking about some of these more advanced techniques. There are loads of extended techniques that can be played on each instrument. So glissandos are a great example, but one example I'll just quickly play somewhere about here is a saxophone, just for example, as a kind of the notes available. I'm just going to put in a couple of A's. And I'm just going to delete that just for now. I've got to remember to undo this in a sec. Is this kind of symbol here, which is muted, close. I call these ghost notes. I'm going to wonder if the saxophone plays this on here. So it doesn't actually play it on this kind of sound file, but the saxophone here will play the same note A, but they'll close some extra valves, or some extra keypads rather, which change the pitch ever so slightly. It's kind of microtonal at this point, but it gives it a really nice effect, kind of these ghost notes. And that's would be kind of showing the kind of extended techniques of each instrument. So that would be imaginative, being able to do that. But the only way to know that sort of stuff is to really study the saxophone. So to get to the really high end would involve either talking to a saxophone player and going, hey, what would be a great idea to make my piece more idiomatic? And they might say, oh, grace notes, you know, use a chromatic approach from below. to approach each note chromatically using a grace note. That's kind of very common in jazz music because it fits a saxophone. And talk to trombone players or read a book on kind of writing or playing trombone solos, because that's how you're going to get to those incredibly high marks. So avoid mistakes to get your first bit, and use the right instruments. That's going to get you your passing marks. And then keep it idiomatic. This is an easy one to get up just by doing a bit of research. Go, what would sound good on my trombone? Right, let's go on to the next section. So notation. How can I up the mark? Actually, hang on. I've just thought of an idea. I had that. I didn't add in the. I think it was there that I ended it. I just remembered. I had all those repeated notes. I'm just gonna I know I said I'd stop composing, but if you get an idea, you just got to go with it. So I think I'm gonna add in a kind of load of repeated notes here, and I'll hold that last one just to lead us back into the head. Yeah, I think played a bit faster, that would sound nice. Brings us on to the next bit, notation. So this is all about using the proper notation for our piece. So the bottom low marks, we'll start with 30. Some notational symbols are correct, but there are large gaps in understanding the conventions of music notation which make their use ineffective. So big point for this one is the middle of the bar. You know, don't go, oh, I'll have a crotchet there tied to that. It won't work. You have to have that split in the bar line, and I'm quite adamant about doing it, and I'll always split the bar line, even if it would be easier to have a different notation there. You know, you could have a crotchet there, but the quaver tied to a quaver is the correct notational standard. So that is how you avoid losing marks. In that kind of regard, you need to make sure your notation is correct. Then to get to the higher marks, let's go for 60. 60 is actually where you don't lose any marks. Correct symbols and conventions applied throughout. That means no mistakes. So that is the minimum of not losing marks. And, you know, if you want a slur, it's quite clear that this is one phrase, and that's great. And the ties work fine. And all the notation is kind of quite similar. And, of course, big one for notation. Make sure, I think it was the F7 at 13 that I had wrong in different hands. So make sure that is all added up correctly, to make sure that you don't lose marks and you get that notation mark. So that's how you don't lose marks. Let's talk about how you gain some marks. So correct symbols and conventions selected and applied, so not losing marks. Good musical communication achieved through the notation. So this is the same. Correct symbols and it's the same. Creative music and effective, good. So it's the same thing for all these three. We'll go for the maximum one. Creative musical communication achieved through the use of notation. And if you look at this one, it's clear, effective, and unambiguous. Let's go for this one. I think this is a good target to make our notation clear, effective, and unambiguous, which for the most part means when we have this symbol, it means pause, and that's quite simple. But let's talk a bit about how fast we want this piece. So we could use some, one temptation might be to use is, let's go add, sorry about this. So let's go add text, and let's add in a tempo. This is something I've been saving for a while. I should have done this sooner because it would have sped up actually listening to the piece. But then again, I wanted to hear how each kind of progression goes a bit slower. So let's have a go. Where is tempo? I believe it's somewhere around here. chord simple. Tempo marking. Oh, this isn't the one I wanted, but this is actually slightly better. So this is the clearest, most unambiguous way of adding in telling our performers what we want. We want exactly 160 beats a minute. This is going to be the kind of tempo we want. But we could also add in a bit of a performance direction. So how do we want this piece to sound? And we could describe this kind of feel using our Italian terms. We could say, oh, we want this kind of quite fast, or we want this lively using presto or allegro or something like that. But I think that the best way to describe how we want this piece to be played, chord expression text, is that it? No, that's all the MFs and tempos. We'll come to that in a sec because that's also part of it. How do you add in tempo? I'll just call it stave text, and we'll just slide this above. So I want this lively. It's not giving it the bold, so it's the same. It's just the feel that I want to write down, so it's quite clear. I want to say that this is lively. I'm not entirely sure how to add that in. System text? No, definitely not that. But you could write in lively instead of having the beats per minute here. Let's just have a listen to how 160 sounds. Yeah, that sounds like the speed I want. I want it nice and lively. This piece doesn't want to drag. But it's important that we have this kind of it's important that we have this direction. It needs to be clear and unambiguous. And we could describe it. We could say lively, that would work, or we could just give them the exact tempo we want. I think tempo, the kind of direction would be better together, but I just haven't figured out how to do that on MuseScore. I think it's slightly easier on Sibelius, which is good because that's what we're doing this module on. But MuseScore, it would be the lockdown equivalent, so that's why I've been doing this on MuseScore just in case. So let's have another. Let's make it even clearer what we want. How loud do we want this? We haven't done that once yet, and it's very simple. We could just add in add text expression, and let's just go for F. I think you have to hold Control or no F. Oh, doing all weird things now. Oh, I think you can drag it in as well. Let's just have a look. Just getting used to... here we go. Dynamics. That'll be even easier. So just click where you want it, and then we'll have an F. What's the proper convention? Do you start at the beginning and then where you would enter? I'd have to look that one up. So that wouldn't be there. That would be there. Oh, I can't remember. These ones, it's quite easy. Actually, I don't want those to be forte, do I? I want them to be kind of MF. They're not at the very forefront. I think I've got so used to it being slow that that's slightly too fast. Let's put it down to 150. And now that's too slow. That's the exact tempo I want. I'm happy with that. But I've just added in those dynamics. I'm not sure what the proper convention is, if you have forte at the beginning and then when it comes in. But I'll have a look at that. So it's just kind of making sure the notation is correct. Another bit of notation is you could have the chord symbols above here as well. So you could have the C9 written for every instrument, because that is what the saxophonist is going to be reading. And I think actually that would be a better idea. So, kind of having the C9 there, C9 there, and then the F7 there, and have that for the trombone as well. But I'm not going to put that in because that's going to take a lot of time. But that is definitely something I would add in. I would go here. I want a, even though the instrument isn't reading the chords, it will be when it's playing and it will be when it's playing the call and response as well, the response. So yeah, add in the chord symbols more. That's a kind of unambiguous. The only word is creative, so that would be kind of thinking a bit outside the box on how you could kind of explain what you want from this piece and from your performers. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I'm sure with some thought I could think of some more imaginative descriptions on how to play and kind of getting across exactly what I want from my players. So let's move on to the next section, which is harmony. So this is something we've been working on already. So let's just have a look. Genuinely fluent attitude towards harmony may show some errors. So this is what we kind of want to start off with. We want the harmony to work, and this is very easy because we're given the 12-bar blues. We know what we want. And look at this for kind of 50 marks. Maybe some weaknesses in stylistic appropriateness. So what does that mean, stylistic? We are jazz. We don't want, if we kept it how we had at the beginning with C triads and F triads, that's not going to sound jazzy. So we want those C7s and those F7s, you know, all the dominants. That's going to be how we get the harmony. Then if we get slightly further up, we can see that it's largely stylistically appropriate and it's effective. This is where we start adding in our nines and, you know, the blues scale fits over it. That's great. Then how do we get to these higher levels? So let's have a look at this one. Fluent and effective attitude towards harmony, entirely in keeping with the necessary style, demonstrating a deep understanding. Let's break those three different parts down. Fluent and effective attitude towards harmony. Great, we've definitely got that. We've got our kind of line cliches and all the fun stuff in there, kind of harmonically interesting. Keeping with the necessary style. Yep, this is absolutely kind of almost bog standard with some 12-bar blues, but with some extra twists, and demonstrating a deep understanding. Well, I think we did that not just harmonically, but melodically for the harmony. We did that with our changing blues scale to outline those kind of target notes and to expand our palette. So I think that this piece is definitely here. If we wanted to get to creative and professional attitude towards harmony, entirely in keeping with the necessary style, but showing a considerable personal flair and deep understanding, how would you do that? That would be do something new. That would be kind of take the 12-bar blues and completely rework it into something new and original. I'm going to add in a chord progression that's never been seen in the 12-bar blues but works harmonically. Just off the top of my head, how would I go about creating a kind of top mark piece that does that? I would do something maybe modal. Modal harmonies is kind of its own special realm. Or if I wanted to be kind of quite modern, I would go for something like negative harmony and do something using quite a complex chord progression using negative harmony. But I don't think we have to worry too much about any of that for now. So this is great. We've added in our extensions, our changing palette, we're keeping within the kind of 12-bar blues, but we've added in loads of extra parts, and that's what we want. And so we come to these two, which are definitely applied together: musical skills and application of musical skills. So this is talking about, it's talking about the music quality overall, which is why I saved it for last. It's a good one to leave to last to talk about because there's not much to it. It's if you read it, a remarkable level of understanding and mastery of the full range of skills involved. Very vague, just says a way of saying overall this is a very knowledgeable piece, but that's already covered by these ones. Application of musical skills. I think this is more appropriate because I can't tell your musical skill, but I can tell you how well you apply them in this piece. So let's have a look at this one more. So if we have a look at here, skills applied with an appropriate level of confidence and sensitivity. That's great. You know how to write a 12-bar blues with a good comping pattern. You know how to do it with interesting rhythms, with a good walking bass. You know how to write a melody that fits well and has that cool and response. If you want to get those higher marks, let's think about that. So skills applied with a very good level of confidence and sensitivity. I don't know about confidence as a kind of word in this mark scheme, but I think the very good part, a very good level, is a bit of an indicator. So that is not just writing a walking bass line that works, that is writing a walking bass line that is amazing. That is writing one that has ghost notes or occasional triplets that work perfectly and are completely idiomatically sound. Confidence and creativity, and it has to be impressive. So that would be kind of going to write a comping pattern that doesn't just use the block chords and the occasional arpeggio, but is really, really what you'd expect from a high-level pianist in the kind of jazz domain, adding in all the kind of flurries and extra little lines that they might add in. And let's go to the final one. Skills applied with a professional level of originality and innovation. Well, that just means be really good at writing 12-bar blues and writing all the different elements of it. So be really good at writing solos, be really good at writing, all these different parts of it. But also innovation. That would be doing something new. That would be doing something that hasn't really been seen before. Now, I don't expect this because it's not necessary. I don't expect these kind of high levels. I would love 70s. This is kind of the target. 70 is a first at university standard, and that is what we're going for. And then kind of bringing in some new stuff once you've mastered everything below is a great idea. So the first goal is to avoid losing marks. You don't want to lose marks for silly mistakes, carrying notes over the bar line, having the wrong chord between different notes. And then it's all about gaining ones after that. It's about how can I make this comping more interesting? Can I research a bit about the bass line to add in the ghost notes and all the interesting little parts that make this piece really interesting? And then, when you're ready to do this, then go for it. I mean, presentation and orchestration, definitely the presentation I think is easily doable. You can create a impeccably presented piece using the MuseScore and Sibelius software. So I think that would be great. Actually, I've just thought of an idea, just for extra presentation. Let's add in some extra text. Let's see what else we can add in. Subtitle. Aha. Let's go foundation. Yeah, music. There we go. It's just a little bit extra, but I think that works well. Oh, goodness, this is going to be a long video. Oh, well, it is the end. It's the grand finale. And it's the one that talks about how to get high marks. So I guess this is probably the most important one. Instrument change, fingering. I don't think we need any of this. We're definitely not going to need any figured bass, lyricists or anything like that. Although then again, just if you want to get some kind of interesting marks, I guess, and kind of show some originality, why not make one of the instruments voice or voices? You can have both of them. And then you can kind of come up with lyrics. You could explore word painting, keeping it idiomatic, but also explore kind of expressing something verbally through your piece. Just ideas I'm throwing out at this point. But there is one thing that I would recommend that would help you get to higher marks. Actually, I'm going to recommend two things. Firstly, read. There are some really good books about how to write bass lines, how to comp for the piano, how to write solos, about the blues in general. And the Berkeley series on these kind of topics are great. The Berkeley jazz comping book, the Berkeley walking bass book, soloing books, any kind of blues soloing book would do. There's some other great ones out there. Or just anything in the library would be absolutely great. Or watch some YouTube videos at the very least. A 5-minute video on walking bass is going to improve your walking bass playing, I've linked a couple. There's a great walking bass one by Adam Neely that I think I've added to the playlist already, which is just a 1-minute video that gives loads of ideas of how to make your walking bass slightly more interesting. So that's the first advice is, you know, you're at university, you're supposed to kind of be learning loads about all the topics, and that's how you get the idiomatic part of it, and you kind of solidify your bass with this kind of area of knowledge is you read around it. Read how to kind of do all these interesting things. If there's a topic you don't know about but you have to cover, find a book on it. There's probably one out there. And if there isn't... Oh, hang on. That didn't match up. Sorry. Oh, that might have happened every time now. Oh. See? Spot the silly mistakes. That's always been a quaver, apparently. Don't know how long that's been like that. And go through your piece, kind of go through it with a fine comb. There we go. Don't lose the silly mistakes marks, because that's going to be absolutely tragic if I have to kind of circle anything in red going, oh no, that shouldn't be right, that like that. And that, you know what, I'm going to save that. That is saved. That is a done piece. I'm going to play it as a kind of outro. But the second piece of advice I'd give you before I leave is do it again. Write another 12-bar blues. Do it for two different melody instruments as a challenge, because not only will it make your playing, your kind of solidify your knowledge in writing 12-bar blues, which is great for going into the kind of the later undergraduate course, but it also means that you have the choice. You could go, which of these pieces is going to get me the most marks? And it might be piece number 2, it might be piece number 1, but at least you've got options. And you could try something different. You could try one of the different chord progressions. You could try different things on the piano. You could try expanding your palette. You know, I mentioned about how you could use, instead of the C blues, you could use the A blues over a C chord. Go crazy with it, absolutely. But I think that's a done piece. So have a read around, write some more, and yeah, I think that will do for a video series. Actually, this one's really dragging out. I'm really sorry, but this isn't going to be the last video. I'm also going to make a video, a very short one, about how to upload it to Blackboard and how to submit your piece, because I think that would be quite a useful one. But for now, let's leave it and let's listen to Sunset Blues. Didn't like that. There we go. I'm happy with that. Let's end it there. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have some successes with your pieces, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with.